got one last folk that we're looking forward to talking to, Addie Diner from iFocus Health, and looking forward to hearing about this new revolutionary technology that's really at the intersection of AI and healthcare, and looking at their pathway for transforming behavioral health with AI and objective measures there. And really excited to be talking to her and all the good work that she's doing, and looking to hear more about that. Adi, can you hear me?
Yeah. Hi.
Hey, outstanding. All right, welcome to the show. And first of all, tell our good audience a little bit about your background and your journey.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be part of this. My background, I'm in my education, I'm a physicist. I worked most of my career developing hardware products, from lasers to biotech and medical devices. When my kid was diagnosed with ADHD, I started looking into that space and learning it more. And I realized there's no objective measures. And when you don't have objective measures, it's much harder to first know who to trust and then to get good care. And that's how the iFocus journey started.
Good for you. And tell us a little bit about the platform.
So we found a way to actually measure a progress for, we start from ADHD, but basically it's a cognitive measure. We're using eye tracking from the webcam, we're all using every day, to look at reading patterns. And using the reading patterns, we are able to measure progress for a patient compared to their baseline. We can give you an objective measure compared to how you did before the treatment. The platform is already active in the patient-facing side, and we're working with design partners to get it into the clinical setting, so clinicians will actually have this information. And instead of spending the time asking the patient, how did you do in the past month, they'll be able to actually see the data, where you have the iFocus objective measure as well as a subjective self-report from the patient in real time. So how am I feeling now versus relying on memory, and then make decisions based on data.
It's incredible, absolutely incredible, and very needed. I mean, in our society, we've seen now with the rise of this kind of condition over the last 5 years, number one with the pandemic, and number two with the scrolling society that we've seen really grow dramatically. And so tell me a little bit more about how you're partnering with healthcare organizations to enhance the patient outcomes that they're seeing through iFocus's platform deployment.
Yeah, so one thing I think it's important to note, there's an increase in diagnosing, not necessarily in the actual condition. A good way to see that is almost every kid you hear is diagnosed, at least one of the parents has ADHD. But what people are starting to realize is how much of an impact it has. So we talk about mental health crisis, and then you look at the data and you realize that untreated ADHD is a huge risk factor for other mental health conditions. And in my mind, it's sort of low-hanging fruit. We have a way to treat it, but we're not doing it well enough. And part of the reason is psychiatrists, especially pediatric psychiatrists, are usually very, very well educated about ADHD, but there are not enough of them. So what happens is that pediatricians and PCPs need to do the follow-up care. They don't have the education or the time, frankly, right? They get a few minutes per patient. And how will they know how to, if they ask the patient, how well are you doing? It takes a lot of experience to really assess subjective feedback. And pediatricians don't have the ability, education, or time to do that. So once you have a platform that gives you an objective measure, now it's like lab tests. And it's easier to train PCPs and other providers. It's easier to give the treatment. And it's easier to trust it as a patient, because now there's an objective measure. I can see how I'm doing. I can see how my kid is doing. There's less talk about, is this real? Is it not real? We can start treating it like we treat other health conditions. And really, I think the point here is not for the patients, or for the clinicians. I think solutions should work for everyone in the space. And that's where we're addressing here.
It's fantastic. No, good for you. And Again, this is so spot on in terms of what we need. We've got about 5 minutes left, and I think one of the things that we're always looking at the lab with our research is we're trying to understand patient-facing products. And again, you're seeing a lot of this now, obviously, with iFocus. You can't get more patient-facing than this. But what's next for iFocus when it comes to this? And what are some of your short and long-term goals and in terms of what you're trying to achieve?
Yeah, so as I said, as I mentioned, we started with the patient-facing platform because it was important for us for this to be easy to use. Otherwise, patients would use it. We're saying this is one of the only products designed by people with ADHD for people with ADHD.
Yeah.
Now that we have over 600 active patients who are working with clinicians to develop their side of it, I heard from many clinicians that a lot of the new technologies implemented were not developed by people that understand their needs. So we want to work with them, and we're actively looking for additional partners that are interested to use this platform and give us feedback. That's where we are right now. So once we launch it and we have it embedded in the EHRs, it gives them the most value, and it's easy for them to use as well.
It's fantastic. And just to wrap it up here, what kind of advice would you give to other entrepreneurs? Obviously, in particular, women in tech who are just starting out in the healthcare space, and they're trying to figure out how to build a company, build a product, and build some sort of market development.
So I think it's important to understand that we hear a lot about tech startups, and what's a significant difference is if you develop a SaaS, a Zoom, a Slack, all these, the people that develop them are also the users and the investors. That's the same group. It's a tech group. For health, the fact that someone that is a tech person wants to pay out of pocket doesn't mean that's necessarily going to be a successful product. So you really need to understand the markets and needs of the market, and that the early adopters in this space are not necessarily a good indication of what will succeed in the end. And I think it's important to do that discovery before you spend a lot of time and energy to make sure your product addresses the real needs of the health system.
That's right. No, it's fantastic advice and a really good way to be able to make sure that there's real value being contributed to the ecosystem when that's working. And you talked a little bit about eye tracking, and you talked a little bit about building outcomes. How does the use of AI with iFocus and its platform actually contribute to improving patient outcomes and reducing costs for hospitals and health systems?
So what we're doing is since we're not psychiatrists, we used AI to basically show it how people read when they're not treated and then with treatment. And we get the measure of the difference, which is, if you want, top down, because bottom up, understanding the brain and how it works. I know many great researchers are working on it, but it takes a lot of time. Our approach is really, really practical, looking at reading, but it's complex. It's too complex to do this type of thing without AI. And that's where AI is a tool in this.
Okay, so that makes a ton of sense. And again, we've tested a lot of different platforms that are using AI to improve direct-to-patient conditions, whether it's in speech or whether it's in rehab or whether it's in cardio. And so that's impressive. What is your platform built on? What's the tech stack in terms of either Python or C++ or that sort of technology?
So here you got me. Although I have a PhD in physics, I'm not a tech. I'm not the person writing code in my company. I have two co-founders, and they're the ones that can answer that question. It's web-based, so the product is on the web and actively working, but I can't answer that intelligently. So sorry about that.
Yeah, no, no doubt there. And again, your team is just phenomenal. We're so impressed with what you have done. It's 3 female founders for those in our audience who are not familiar with the company, and really just some incredible successes in the last year, especially. Tell us a little bit about how you guys have been able to tackle such an important area around ADHD, and how you've been able to build this kind of a technology platform and do this all from the ground up. What's been your secret?
I think it's about really believing in what we do. That's the first thing. And what happened is we started talking to clinicians, and we found, and initially I was asking, what am I doing wrong? No, it can't be this easy. And we got some amazing support from many clinicians. And I think when you're passionate about what you do and you really believe in it, you get people to join you and support you. And that's been a huge thing. Working on this collaboratively and getting feedback, and that's how we improve the product.
That's great. And that's such a good way to finish off today, since so much of today was around being able to get feedback from people like yourself and investors and buyers, and in terms of how to build an ecosystem. And again, we've had a tremendous audience as well listening to you today, from government executives to academic executives to academics, researchers from all over the world, Africa, Asia, Latin America, North America, Europe, of course. So thank you for your time today, your perspectives, and just lending us a little bit of your expertise.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. I've been enjoying working with HITLAB, so thank you very much.